is Nuutsumuut Lelum. And we're going to hear from Mark Ashby, Darcy Imada, and Thomas OBrien. Mark is the principal of Fold Architecture. He's an architect and certified passive house designer with 19 years experience in British Columbia. And he's also an instructor with Passive House Canada. Darcy is a senior technologist and project manager with DYS Architecture, and she's an intern architect and also a certified passive house designer. And Thomas is the manager of housing and facilities for the Nanaimo Aboriginal Center. He's responsible for all maintenance and upkeep for the Nanaimo Aboriginal Center's portfolio, and he's the landlord agent for the Nuutsumuut Lelum property.
Mark, you're muted.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're getting nods. That's great. Hoichka, thank you, Laurie, for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to present Nuutsumuut Lelum. As mentioned, I'm Mark Ashby. I was the CPHD for this project. Also a member of the education team, along with Laurie for Passive House Canada. I am joining you today from the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation in beautiful southern Vancouver Island, on whose territory it is my great privilege to live. Today's theme is resilience, and I'm joined today by designer Darcy Imada of DYS Architecture and Thomas OBrien, the manager of housing and facilities for the NAC, the organization that envisioned and ultimately created this project. They're going to talk about how this certified passive house synthesizes social, cultural, and environmental dimensions in order to help foster a resilient community for the end users, the occupiers of this building. Next slide, please. So very quick overview. This project commenced in 2015. It was occupied in 2018. It was funded by a provincial housing authority as affordable, long-term affordable rental housing, targeting the Indigenous community in Nanaimo. It consists of 25 suites ranging from studio to 3-bedroom in 3 different blocks. And the suites are all ground accessed, which was an important feature for this operator. The costs for this project were actually quite comparable to non-passive house projects also funded by BC Housing at the time. Next slide, please. The site itself, you can see defined by that orange property line. It's an elongated wedge residual from a road modernization project. This aerial photograph is before the modernization. Next slide, please. This shows the road alignment as it currently is. Bowen Road to the south, single family residences to the north, and an environmentally sensitive gully to the east. The site is next to a busy arterial road, but it has very good south solar access, which was quite helpful. And the land was granted by the city of Nanaimo on the condition that this project is passive. The key metrics of the passive house certification are on the slide. It is a PHI certified passive house classic project. Stick frame construction, so very conventional construction with exterior insulation and an exterior air barrier. We used passive house certified vinyl windows with high solar heat gain glass and certified HRVs along with supply air heating in individual suites. I'm now going to pass the mantle over to Thomas OBrien with the Nanaimo Aboriginal Center.
Hey, Squale. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Passive House Canada, Passive House Accelerator, and Passive Buildings Canada. Hey, Squale, good day. My name is Thomas OBrien. I'm the manager of housing and facilities for Nanaimo Aboriginal Center. I would like to recognize the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation in which we live, work, learn, and play. NAC is grateful to be able to do the work that we do on Nanaimo territory, and for this we say Haitziapka to Nanaimo. Nanaimo Aboriginal Center was established on August 8, 2013. Nanaimo Aboriginal Center is a nonprofit organization whose focus is on education, culture, and family. The NAC logo you see here in the first slide represents a child in the middle of circles of support. These circles of support represent family, community, and culture. Next slide, please. Nuutsumuut Lelum. Here's two pictures of Nuutsumuut Lelum. I'm going to speak to Nuutsumuut Lelum and community needs. As Mark shared, I'm going to touch a bit on it. Nuutsumuut Lelum is a Passive House certified 25-unit affordable housing project in Nanaimo. NL is comprised of 4 studio units. These studio units are geared for youth transitioning from care to independent living. There's 6 one-bedroom units. 3 of these one-bedroom units are designated strictly for elders. There's 3 two-bedroom units and 12 3-bedroom units for families. NAC's vision for Nuutsumuut Lelum was to create safe, affordable, and culturally appropriate housing for our urban Indigenous community in Nanaimo, and to build community for those living away from home. Nuutsumuut Lelum, translated from Hulkaminum to English, means all in one house. Nuutsumuut Lelum is intended for Indigenous by Indigenous. We believe this to be critical when providing and operating culturally appropriate housing. Next slide. Here's the amenity room at Nuutsumuut Lelum. The NL amenity room was designed to provide space for the NL community to host family gatherings such as dinners, barbecues, birthday parties, that the community or families within Nuutsumuut Lelum may not otherwise be able to support in their unit. Pre-COVID, Nanaimo Aboriginal Center would also host gatherings like Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, Easter egg hunts, Halloween celebrations, barbecues, cultural gatherings, activities, bringing the good medicine of drumming, songs, dances, and prayers to the community. Beyond gatherings and activities, NAC would also bring programs onto the property that would include homework club, youth group, coffee talks for parents, youth night on Fridays for youth 12 to 19, as well as educational opportunities for our elders that want to learn to read and write or have support in upgrading a little. Next slide, please. Housing Providers of the Year 2018. NAC was awarded the Housing Provider of the Year award from the BC Nonprofit Housing Association in 2018. We believe in order to be thought of as affordable housing, utility costs need to be considered. You can have affordable rent. For example, at Nuutsumuut Lelum, our 3-bedroom units go for $900 a month. But if your utility costs are sky high, can we really consider it to be affordable? Through its passive house design, Nuutsumuut Lelum is meeting needs of the community as an affordable housing project with low-cost utilities. We are currently working on gathering post-occupancy data to measure project expectations versus real-world outcomes. Many of the conversations I have had with our families, though, and what they've shared in regards to what their utility costs have been, are telling us, without the data, mind you, that we are meeting expectations for low utility costs. Next slide, please. Resiliency in Canada. When I think of resiliency in Canada, I cannot help but think of our Indigenous peoples. Throughout history, we have shown time and time again that we are resilient and that we are still here, standing together as one. We are all connected. The trees, the land, the water, the animals, the insects, and us as humans. As Indigenous peoples, we will continue to be strong, courageous, and thoughtful while remaining resilient as we move forward and work to create a sustainable future for our next generations. Sorry. Through family, community, and culture, Nuutsumuut Lelum has become a living entity. Nuutsumuut Lelum is more than just a housing project. It is a community of youth, elders, and families that together are creating a healthy environment in which they are holding one another up in a good way and being a great example of what can be accomplished when we work together as one. Nuutsumuut Lelum is a good example of a for Indigenous by Indigenous strategy. One of the intentions of the project, in order to provide culturally appropriate housing for Indigenous, it must be operated by Indigenous. By knowing and understanding the needs, struggles, and successes of our urban Indigenous peoples, we can best plan to provide what's needed, recommend appropriate supports for their struggles, and finally acknowledge and recognize their successes in a culturally appropriate way. A for Indigenous by Indigenous strategy is vital to ensure urban, rural, and northern Indigenous people's needs are being met. Aichka, thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm a little intimidated to go after that wonderful presentation there. Thank you very much. But I guess I will do my best to continue on. I see here that I don't think I got my slides switched like I had asked. Could we just go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is great. So I'll start with a little bit of background on how the project came about as well. So as Mark had said, this was one of 5 sites that was selected by the city of Nanaimo and BC Housing for development of affordable high density housing was the key in that one. And as you can see from the site here and what Mark had mentioned, a long skinny site, so a little challenging with some restrictions on the east side with the Millstone River, and also an archaeological site that we had to make sure we stayed out of with all of our construction work. So the city, once they realized they wanted the site developed, they approached the Nanaimo Aboriginal Center to see if they'd be interested. And NAC saw the river and the historical significance of the site and thought it would be a perfect fit for their Indigenous community. So from there, knowing that they were more interested in building family housing instead of high density single unit housing, they pitched the passive house concept to the city. And that's sort of how the ball got rolling on this project and how we started making headway in getting it under construction. So can I switch to the previous slide now, please? Yeah, so a little bit of character and background here. When developing the concept for this, we did gather together with the society, including elders and youth from the society, and a few other key knowledgeable people. And we set out basically 2 fundamental principles that we would work from. And the first one was that the character must be culturally responsive, as Thomas had mentioned. And the second was that the project must reference, but not replicate, the historical Indigenous structures of the West Coast. So you can see here in this photo, or this slide up on the left, some of the traditional shapes, which were very rectangular, and also depending on the region that they were located in, there were a lot of shed and slope roof forms. They're also very organic in nature, and you can see also there's a very efficient use of materials, so not a lot of waste. We're not decorating these buildings, we're building for a purpose here. And then also with the traditional longhouse layout, a very functional plan, very linear layout, with space for individual families, but also a shared central common area for gathering space. So can we go to the third slide now, please? So it was very obvious from that previous slide that you could see just the image emerging from all that sort of fit right in with the passive house concept of simplified building form for efficiency and all that. So we thought we were just moving along great. And now we can see here from a few photos that I'll go over the final project. So this is the main entry into the project from Bowen Road, looking into the outdoor gathering space. And this was, as Thomas had advised, the heart of the community here. And you can see it's flanked on the left by the traditional Nanaimo totem pole. And I think this was, at the time of installation, the tallest totem pole.
Fucking guys, fuck my ass. Fuck my.
Okay, the tallest totem pole on Vancouver Island, I think at 27 feet tall. So I'm not sure if it still is, but it was pretty exciting for the project at the time. On the right-hand side, there was the ceremonial wood portal entry into the interior cultural space. I was going to go over some of the exterior metrics, but I think Mark covered that quite well with the exterior insulation, which was 8 inches of exterior insulation with vertical pressure treated strapping, long screw installation, and the beautiful cedar, natural cedar on the outside here. Also, for you guys' information, the building has continuous insulation around the footings and underneath the slab and on the top of the roof structure. So completely exterior insulated building, which helped us really create these efficient transition details to get a good airtight building. We can go to the next slide, please. So on this slide looking up Bowen Road along the street front of the south side of the building here, you can kind of see the organic nature of the project and the traditional roof forms as they slope up and down. You can also see in the front here, we've got a natural stormwater management system through a rain garden. So we didn't have to use large underground water detention tanks. You can see here as well, since this is the south facing elevation, we've got built-in exterior sunshades. It's actually a little bit hard to see in this photo, but they're there. And then for individual tenants, there are interior blackout drapes for additional control of light into the suite. Next slide, please. So this, you can see some of the great artwork that was incorporated into the building here. When you approach the building from either direction along Bowen Road, the first thing that you will see is a beautiful piece of traditional artwork. And this one on this end of the building is the Métis prairie flower with the traditional colors incorporated. On the other end, it's a woven pattern that is representative of the Métis sash. Here you can see the narrow nature of the building, and it really allowed us to implement some efficient through building ventilation with operable windows on both sides, because the buildings aren't super wide, so it's not the same situation you get with a double loaded corridor. So we really were able to take advantage of that passive ventilation here. We can go to the last slide, please. And here we have the interior gathering space, and there's a couple of really important cultural features that we incorporated into this space. So you can see on the ceiling, there is the exposed cedar slats, and that was actually recycled cedar that we got from a temporary pavilion that was built for Expo 86 actually. And there was some of that siding that was used on the outside of the building as well for some of the fences and patio areas. And so that was really important sustainability feature that was a key element that the society wanted us to start incorporating that kind of stuff. So we were able to do that. And the other great thing in this space is this natural polished, beautiful concrete floor. And that again, sort of brings that grounding sense and that earthen floor of the traditional housing. So that was something that was important as well. So that kind of wraps up my project, or my talk here. I just think it's really exciting to see after, I think it's 3 years now, the progress and the vibrant community that NAC has been able to create on the site, and just to come and see some of the photos of the events that are going on there and just how prosperous this community has become. It's very rewarding. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.